What are some of the issues that you have seen with autonomous cars? I know it's a big thing, and eventually we might see it here frequently.
Some of the concerns that have been very been talked about among all the the state agencies, the cities who have seen autonomous vehicles uh, penetrating our traffic network is basically the confusions that they experience. Uh, these vehicles, as you know, realize and depend a lot on the marking on the pavement, the signage, and the lack of these pavement marking and the signage in some of the roadway sections and intersections might provide the confusions to the machine learning algorithms that these vehicles used in order to operate autonomously. And that's where the problem mostly happens. So we all know about it. The best mitigation for that is improving the marking quality, make it a little wider, make it a little shiny. But even though the glare sometimes from the sun, the rain sometimes that might cover some of those marking might still add some of the confusions to the cameras that's embedded within these vehicles to capture the edges of the lanes that they're driving on it. So basically, you're looking into other complications that can be coming in to those vehicles, especially as we continue to see them penetrating more into our traffic streams, meaning their numbers are in the rise. And adding another component, which is the congestions that add pedestrians traffic coming in, more vehicles sharing the roads with them, and that's add up to the complexity of those vehicles to be operating smoothly and safely in our roadway network. I would say this is a work in progress. The fact that the advancement in the machine learning algorithms, the capturings, the cameras contribute a lot to improving the autonomous vehicles operations. But at the same time, cities, DOTs continue to make improvements in the roadway network and infrastructure to make the transitions and the operation of these vehicles a lot more safer. So it's really a collaboration between the manufacturers of those vehicles as well as the Department of Transportations, the municipalities, the counties, and their investment in making the infrastructures more acceptable to these vehicles as they continue to increase in numbers in our traffic.
When you look at San Antonio as a whole, are there specific areas where you think this is true, like the infrastructure and the painting on the roads?
That's correct. San Antonio is not immune like any other big cities that could see these issues rising as having more autonomous vehicles in our traffic stream. There is always issues that can be done and resolved in order to improve the operation of those autonomous vehicles. You can tell that most of the congested areas, especially in the downtown areas where you have a stream of pedestrian traffic, vehicles, commercial vehicles, taxis, concentrated in one place, mostly the downtown. And that's where sometimes creates more issues because of the confusion that might show up in the algorithms that these vehicles utilize. Adding to it some other constraints and problems, sometimes the glare from the sun, the rain. This also add complexity for how these vehicles operate because of sometimes the positions of the sunlights and the blocking of the cameras during a rain event. So these things also adding to it. But I would say the congestions in some of the hotspot areas during peak hours, rush hour, as well as concentrations of a lot of traffic could be most of the hotspots that could create some of those issues to be rising more than any other areas.
I'm sure they know they're approaching an intersection, right? And maybe there's a crosswalk, but sometimes if there's a lot of people, they don't stay in the crosswalk, right? If it's a group of people, they might go on both sides of the crosswalk. And so does the car sometimes not know how to react to the certain situations?
That's true. That's absolutely true. And as I told you, the fact that these vehicles operate is by algorithms that get trained by put it itself into new situations every once in a while. And these new situations, new conditions, keep introduced to these algorithms that let the vehicles train with the exposure to these situations over time. And that related to improve how these vehicles improve. So the more these vehicles get itself into an unusual situations where there's a massive traffic of pedestrians coming out from a football game, and at the same time, a lot of school buses coming out from school, and a lot of vehicles in the downtown. So all these interactions could be adding to a unique situation that maybe the software or the algorithms never been exposed to. So you expect some glitching in the beginning. You expect sometimes unusual reflections and reactions from these vehicles. We're hoping that no crashes would happen. That's a hope until these trained algorithms get to the point that get itself accustomed to these situations, and from there you would get a better operations of these vehicles with time. And the more it drives itself into these situations, the more you get that algorithms to get in a better operations phase, where it gets to get rid of all these issues that we experienced before. So yes, you expect issues in the beginning, and training of these algorithms is the solutions for it.
San Antonio is growing so much. I mean, when you look at the road projects that are, set to be done over the next couple of years, downtown is growing. Is it going to be hard, let's say, if they wanted to bring in cars in the near future, when you're seeing all of these roads being expanded, construction shutting down, streets?
That's true. Our data analysis, several of the research projects that we're working on, suggest that, as usual, the more traffic volumes, the more lane mile travel, vehicle mile traveled, the more crashes you would expect. Obviously, the more people on the road, the more crashes you would result from that. So that's not immune from having more EVs or autonomous vehicles as well. Small towns, small cities, in terms of the number of vehicles, definitely would have a lot less crashes than a bigger city like San Antonio. But again, train the vehicles like this in a situations that is almost unique in a big city like San Antonio would be an advantage in our city and small cities as well, because these situations, you're not going to find them in small cities. So you want really the exposure to these vehicles in unusual situations in order to have the best algorithm that lead to a better operations of these vehicles. Does it solve problems? Sure, yes. I always give this training and projects to my students in class and ask them, please go check out some of those intersections, some of those segments of the roadways that has been historically providing a lot of crashes and incidents that involve pedestrians, cyclists, scooters, or maybe just crashes between vehicles. And I would ask them, please, if you would go out there as part of their projects and classes to go investigate what really happened, what really led to that. And most of the times you will look into maybe driver behavior, pedestrian crossing not on the right, place, maybe lack of lighting sometimes, lack of marking on pavements. So there might be issues. Some of them have to do with the drivers. So the same question I asked to them at the end of that, would you think if we have vehicles that drives itself, where the drivers is not involved, would that solve some of the issues we experience? The answer is yes, to some extent. Uh, Eliminating the human factor in some of the crashes we experience, and human factors are a lot. Fatigue driver, drunk driver, driving under influence, distracted drivers. These are all factors that led historically to a lot of crashes. So you're hoping that with the autonomous vehicles that you are eliminating the crashes that involved the human factor. And that's exactly what we're expecting with improving the technologies of the autonomous vehicles to, at some point in the future, eliminate entirely this type of crashes. This is not going to solve the other type of crashes that has to do with weather, some pedestrians crashes, some infrastructure non-suitable for vehicles due to lack of marking, for example, or lack of lighting. But at some point, you are solving a particular type of crashes. And eventually, you are moving to improve that one piece at a time.
One more time, if you can explain, the markings on the roadway that we would need to improve to be able to, take it to the next step.
The vehicle just define the boundaries of the lane where it drives. And basically, it used cameras along the boundaries of the vehicles that really highlight what is the edges of this lane. So it stays within that lane. And as far as it can recognize the edges and the boundaries of the lanes, it stays within that boundaries as it drives. The pavement marking is one of the elements that it's very significant when it comes to defining the boundaries of the lane. If you are towards the ends where you have the sidewalk or the curbs, that might help. But if you are in the middle lanes, so you really depends a lot on the pavement marking, the white stripes, to really identify what is your boundaries are. So as like a human driver, you always wanted to see that, and it's no difference. You still wanted to see those boundaries to drive, even if it is in the rural areas. There is no lot of pavement marking, but at least there may be the yellow stripe that separates one direction from the opposite direction, for example. This is a must. You still have to do it. And this is where the marking becomes very significant. The reflectivity of those pavement marking also, because you want them to be shining and visible for the cameras that capture them to define that lanes. Remember, the vehicle drives in very high speeds. You can get 60, 70 miles per hour, especially on the highways. And you really wanted to have a continuous quality pavement marking that really maintain the vehicle to stay en route within those boundaries. So really the lack of reflectivity of this pavement marking, the lack of marking on the pavement itself might adding to some of the complexity for these vehicles to operate. So pavement marking is a very significant part of the roadways that helps with the full integration of autonomous vehicles, as well as a more safer environment for it to operate.
Lastly, I don't know if you've been able to kind of share some of your information, your knowledge, your studies with the Department of Transportation or anything like that to kind of let them know as well.
We always look into the problems and the issues that continue to rise and increase in our traffic network, particularly into the safety aspects. And we continue to look into solutions to some of those issues that happens within the right of way. We call this the right of way. Basically, that involved pedestrians on the sidewalk, cyclists in the bike lane, vehicles in the roadway. or itself maybe issues with signage, light poles, vegetations. So whatever happens within the right of way that we look at, to try to improve it over time, whether from the safety perspectives, sustainability perspectives, resiliency perspectives. So we continue to learn from other agencies that we work with, whether it is Texas Department of Transportation, City of Austin, City of San Antonio, to learn about the issues and the problem that they experience. And they always the first people to call when issues happens in our roadway network. Residents might be complaining about how some of the vehicles, like what you mentioned, that it's got confused and it stopped in the middle of the roadway because it doesn't recognize how it operates. So what people do, they always complain and call the city because of these vehicles that has no driver on it. So they share and they collect all these informations and just to try to learn and understand what really led to that. And that's where we learn from them. And we collaborate with them, and we try to go and investigate and study what are the problems, what led to these issues, and how we can solve and fix them. So for us, we are always interested to know the problems. We're always interested to find solution to the problem, and we engage our students by letting them to be part of this solving problem issues. As engineers, this is what we do. We're solving problems, and we're hoping that at some point we get to the point that we are solving all the issues that autonomous vehicles bringing into our traffic. We're not going to stop there. There is always new technologies. There is always new issues. There is always new challenges, and we're always going to be looking for the solutions to them.
Thank you so much. And it seems like you guys are doing some great work.